Okay, I think we're good. So I'm
Yeah,
here with Lindsay. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm good. I'm
Good.
at the end of the day. I'm a little bit tired just from having my two littles, but this is like a nice break for me. This is a good refreshing. I feel like I'm kind of back working in a way.
Oh, good. Yes. Well, I appreciate you coming on. You know, Lindsay, she's a board certified holistic health practitioner. Is that correct?
Yes, you got it.
Okay, I got it. And I love that you're passionate about something I'm also passionate about, which is health. And we're talking today specifically about preventative health. And healthcare is obviously an ongoing issue. We're needing something to change in healthcare. And I believe, as I know you do as well, that it goes deeper than just talking about medicine, copays, premiums. Let's change the conversation just a little bit. And I believe this conversation is shifting and it is changing. Been following a lot of what Dr. Shiva Ayodari is talking about. I think he's bringing up some very controversial things, but very accurate things and applicable to where we're at in America. And he's not the only one. There's a host of other people who have been talking about this for a while. I know I have. My history is in health and fitness. I know you are as well involved in that industry and helping people. It's hard to even call it an industry, because I know we want to work with people, but we feel it's important to talk about health in a very fundamental way. What do we do to strengthen our immune system so we can fight viruses? So I don't want to, I can go on and on about this, but I want to pass the ball to you and say, what are your thoughts, Lindsay?
What are my thoughts? And you're right. What an amazing time right now to bring this up. And I
Right,
think we actually have more eyes and ears open
exactly.
than ever before. I think people are really starting to think, this is a good time to get things in check as far as a discussion regarding health. And, right now with this time in our country and all over the world, I think we're seeing so many different studies, different stats about, this virus, how it's affecting certain populations of people that might be more susceptible to the virus.
Right.
And some of those things, when you're looking at the underlying issues, some of them say hypertension, some of them say diabetes, some of them say high blood pressure. There's several other underlying conditions that they're talking about are the typical population. Even those that have an autoimmune disorder might be more susceptible. I've read that too. I think, though, aside of that, the things that they talk about, the underlying conditions that people have that I believe can be preventable, I think that's the topic that's kind of raising some eyebrows right now of, well, if some of these things can be actually reversed and done at a more proactive and preventative manner, I'm hoping this has kind of been like a wake-up call in a way for a lot of
Yeah.
people to say it's time to take our health seriously and not be so reactive and start being proactive. And there's kind of that battle you're seeing like in the media right now where what's the right approach to things right now? Do we blanket, a solution for everybody on what they think the perfect solution is for health and how to combat viruses or pathogens in general? Or there's the other side where people are saying, no, let's be more proactive. Let's see what we can do to kind of beef up the immune system. So you kind of see two of those sides right
Right.
now.
Exactly. And that does give me concern when we start talking about universal solutions. When we start saying there is one vaccine that's going to fix all of our problems, and because it's all of our problems, everybody must take it. It's mandatory for everyone. We're seeing that kind of conversation being brought up, and it's connected to what we're talking about. As long as there remains other solutions, then that option's off the table for me. Mandatory vaccinations, whenever we're not even doing the fundamental things, then why even go there? Let's go and talk about basics like healthy eating and exercise. And I can feel when I say that, people roll their eyes. But we want to talk about real solutions. and that's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how you are made, how your systems are made to deal with these things naturally. We have so many problems, so many health issues in America specifically because of our diet, because of our environment. And, you know, if we make changes on a more fundamental level, we've got to do that before we ever start talking about any mandatory vaccinations.
Well, and you're right. You're exactly right. I think it's going about the approach. Are we going to handle things with, like you said, one blanket universal solution for everybody when we're all bio-individual? We all respond to things differently. And while we're on that topic, yeah, it's kind of bringing up this conversation of, if that's the only solution that we're sitting around waiting for, then what is the point of even trying to do anything healthy in our lives? What's the point of the fundamental core values of an immune system? And to me, those are things like physical fitness, activity, those are nutrition with whole dense foods, it's proper sleep, supplementation, lowering the stress in your life, having a balanced array of like your mental, emotional, and spiritual lifestyle. It's your community. There's so many different fundamental foundations for me that I speak with my clients and with groups about, that we've got to keep as a priority for the immune system. What's the point of doing any of those things if we're always trying to go with this approach of just a quick fix?
Yeah.
This should solve it. And that's kind of one of my big issues as a practitioner that I see with people. I will never tell anybody that there is some great pill you can take, or there's just one specific workout program, or here, just eat a salad with lots of good veggies every day. There cannot be just one certain thing that will make you, quote, healthy or solve a solution. There's numerous factors that go into what that makes up. And so I agree, going back to that conversation, you know, there's different things, and I know this might be a controversial topic for a lot of people, but when we're looking at a topic of, we're just going to wait until we have this option that's been fast-tracked, they're skipping the animal studies to go through that particular vaccine. We don't know what type of ingredients they're going to be putting in this particular one. Is it polysorbate 80? Is it formaldehyde? Is it antifreeze, which is also known as propylene glycol? There's so many different things that we know are other ingredients that are very harmful to the body, that are neurotoxic, and they can actually affect certain people in different ways. So if that's the only solution we're looking at, it's kind of going back to what I just said, then what is the point of even trying to beef up your immune system when we don't even know at this point if it can or could cause harm, because the long-term safety studies won't be there because it's fast-tracked.
Right. Yeah, it's so important. And, you know, even before this outbreak, before the COVID virus, we had a problem. And, you know, when you look at the stats of what is the leading killer in America and in Oklahoma, it's both the same. It's heart disease. Almost 100% preventable. I'm not saying completely. My wife, you know, she has congenital heart disease and resulting pulmonary hypertension. So we've been very careful in this time because she would be one of the susceptible ones. And so we are taking a lot of precautions. And we understand that there are situations that food doesn't fix. We understand that. But food fixes a lot of them, and just a healthy lifestyle. And so my question is, in this discussion about how to improve our healthcare system, that might be a good place to start, is how do we address the number one killer that can be solved apart from medication, apart from being hospitalized? I mean, by just adjusting your lifestyle. And so we get to a deeper issue there of why can't people do this? And I know this relates to economics and poverty levels and food deserts that we see in certain communities where they don't have access to healthy food or the money to buy healthy food, even though I do believe there are ways and solutions to help with that as well. But this becomes, see, we always like, especially in politics, to pick a certain issue and segment it and solve it. But you can't solve it by segmenting it. You can't do it by addressing that issue alone. The issue of our health is related to our farming, to our food system. What is the FDA doing? It's related to our economics and to our poverty levels in America. So they're all interwoven. That's why it's so complex, and why a lot of people just give up and say, I'm going to do my best and trust the government. We can't do that and give up our liberties. And so own the situation, and let's find a solution, recognizing it's a very complicated issue. But that is a starting place. Looking at preventative health, looking at how can we, if we just focused on the number one killer in America and in Oklahoma being at the top of the states in America as the leader in heart disease. So that would be a great place to start. And if we can address this by helping people live by just changing lifestyle, man, we could go so far. What does that do to reduce insurance premiums, to make it more affordable for all? What does it do to keep people out of the hospital and having to do with high hospital bills that could cripple a family?
Right.
These are the kind of questions I'm asking. How can we incentivize schools and corporations to promote this healthy lifestyle? Because this has to be I personally believe not just a part of the conversation, but it needs to lead the conversation.
Well, it definitely needs to lead the conversation. I think it's about, and I don't know if this particular instance in our country has kind of been like, okay, here is it. Let's start to dive into the more serious talk, because you're right. These are conversations that I've even been having with myself for the last few years of why can't we change the school system food? Why is it that we still have these particular foods, frozen foods, things that are like chicken McNuggets, French fries, hamburgers, pasta, and cartons of milk in our school cafeteria? Why do we still have the vending machines in our school that contain just the candy bars and the chips? There's so many things that here in 2020 that, for me, that's been a passion deep within myself to think, what can I start to do with that now? Because it starts at a younger generation where those food habits start to begin, and the more that they're used to seeing that in the school, how are they supposed to change those habits growing up?
Exactly. And I think that studies have shown that you may not see the negative results in adolescence, but like you said, they establish habits which will produce insulin resistance and cause diabetes down the road. And that starts by the habits that are being formed. So I completely agree.
Right. And I've spoken with so many people that say, I wish I would have done differently with my children now that I know what I know. And so it is, how do we come alongside these people and help them? How do we teach them? I'm really big on doing educational groups, whether it's online or even just one-on-one consultations, and teaching people the simple fundamentals of ingredients.
Right.
Going back and looking at what are the ingredients in your food package? What is the food brand? Because that's actually big now. You're starting to see food brands that are coming out and saying, here, we're testing for glyphosate, and here's the little trace symbol on the package to show that we've been going to that extent to do that. But a lot of it goes back to the big food industry and the way that they're processing the food, to where a lot of us as consumers, we can't always be placed blame on that, because they're going to the grocery store and buying what they think might be healthy, but it's actually greenwashing.
Exactly.
The label looks like it's green and healthy, and yet it's filled with all of these ingredients that are actually causing chronic inflammation within the body, spiking, sugar. And that's why we've also a growing number of obesity. And so, where do we go back? And I think it starts to come down to the big food industries and what they're putting on the shelves of the stores where we're buying. And so where does education start to teach people about, you have to start voting with your dollars, and here's how. We're going to teach you this, because it's not going to come naturally. I believe there has to be a big revolution right now to say, we're going to, as health professionals, we're going to go along with our society and help them and educate them and teach them. And then the more that they're equipped with that, and they can recognize the back of the label of, oh, this particular ingredient, I know that one you should stay away from, because so many people focus on, oh, this has carbohydrates in it, or this has calories. And so we're lacking the education of simply teaching people how to eat healthy. And it doesn't just start with, or just stop with the food, like you said earlier. That's just one piece of it.
Exactly. And I believe that's a place where government has to step in and dealing with the food producers. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up The End of Overeating by Dr. David A. Kessler. Amazing book on the science behind the palate. And the palate is what's driving our food consumption. And because food producers know this, and because what I'm saying is food that dissolves easily in your mouth with layers of fat, salt, and carbs, fat, salt, and sugar. Fat, salt, and sugar stimulate endorphins and cause a response in your body that is very, very similar. If not, you could just say it's addiction. And you become addicted to the high that these types of foods give you. And different combinations give you different cravings. And this is a science that people study. And it's capitalism at its finest in saying we are going to give people what they want in the portions that they want, and they're going to pay for it all day long. And so it is a very money-driven market. And hey, I'm not going to knock them trying to make something that sells. And guess what? I'll eat that every once in a while. We went out for a taco the other night, and but learning how to live with control and discipline, and doing that from an early age, but also being aware of marketing strategies from restaurants to stores and just food product producers. They put out food products, and the product is designed to stimulate your brain and create an addictive response. That's the point, so that you come back and buy it again, both in restaurants and in the grocery store. And this is the system. This is the system at work, and the system is destroying our immune system. And so when we see something like this break out, our body has no resistance. And because we have no resistance, we say to the government, fix it, give us a solution. And then we put ourselves in a very vulnerable, dangerous position. And so if we're going to stay in a position of strength where we have the opportunity to fight for our freedoms, it has to start with the choices we make about what we're eating.
It does. And, it's a vicious cycle. It really is hard to talk about, because there's even things that can stem back from your cravings can actually start to then affect your different levels of your hormones. And then you're starting to throw your body completely out of whack. You're unbalanced in one area, and then you're having cortisol levels shoot up high when they shouldn't be high, and they're low when they should be low. And then not only that, then we're letting other toxicities from the chemicals in our food, from our environment, from our water that we all think is, fine to drink. But if we're not actually filtering our water to filter out some of like the fluoride and the chlorine, the pathogens that were actually still in water when we tested here in where I live. But some of those things build up in the body, and then they start to interact like a storm, and they can cause all sorts of issues. So it really is, you have to pay attention to the fundamental things to boost your immune system. It cannot just be one thing. Like I said earlier, we can't have one solution. We need to look at many different approaches. And also that includes, how do we beef up the immune system? How do we give it everything that we possibly can so that it can be the main line of defense and the main line of offense to fight off things and be resilient? And that's been the big word for me is 2020 is resiliency. And that's teaching that to my children of why we might eat certain things, or why we may go and be out in the sunlight, for certain amount of time to get vitamin D3. There's certain things why we choose that may look differently than other families, but it's teaching them the power of the immune system and doing what we can with what we have to be proactive. And so with our healthcare system going into this year, I pray that it's got to be a wake-up call to let us know what are the things we can go alongside of people and teach them. Here are the things that we can help contribute to a healthier body, to decrease heart disease, diabetes, blood pressure issues, obesity. But we have to start changing the way that we think, and we have to start changing the way that we vote with our dollars, because we truly do. We're creatures of habit, and if we continue to buy the same products, buy into the same messaging that we're hearing over and over, nothing will change. So to reverse that, we've almost got to do a 180 and really start to educate others and help go, along with them to teach them, because it's not going to come easy. It's not an easy, quick fix. Like I said, it's something that people need support in, and they need accountability, need someone to feel like, yes, you are able to do it, because it can be a scary thing. I mean, change is scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But one thing I love about this conversation is it puts the responsibility on the person. And sometimes people don't like this conversation because they don't want that responsibility. We want to throw it off onto the government or whoever. But when you own that responsibility, now you have an opportunity. That you have an opportunity to affect change in your body, in your system, in your own healthcare. You actually start to own it. And so it's a great conversation because it really puts the ball in the person's court and say, you have power. You have the power to choose and to start making decisions. So now a question is, so now they say, okay, I want to start. So what can the government do? Like we've talked about, there needs to be reform in the food industry. There needs to be reform in agriculture. How can the government incentivize and help farmers produce food that is actually nutritious? And because as farmers, they're competing with huge industries that is just about cranking out volume, not about quality. And so they'll use whatever method possible to get more volume out and get it on the shelves.
Well, they're getting regulated now to use some of the chemicals that are non-organic. Like they're getting regulated now to have to use certain things that they probably wouldn't have agreed with in the first place for their crops.
Right, exactly. So we have to say this is of critical importance. You can't talk about solving our healthcare crisis and ignore agriculture. They're connected. You can't talk about the healthcare crisis and ignore the food industry. And so what are we going to do? What are we going to do in these other industries if we're actually concerned about healthcare? And so, but what I love about this is we don't have to wait on the government to decide. It's what are you going to choose today? And so, but what I was going to say a minute ago is, say the person now says, okay, I hear what you're saying. I really do. And I think most people want to lose weight. Most people want to be healthy. And they find themselves in this vortex, this cycle, like you said, because they don't know how to change. And they have been in 20 years of a certain habit and behavior. Their brain is actually formed for that and has been conditioned for that. Neuro pathways have been established that reinforce habits and addictive behaviors. And so they say, I want help, I need help. How do I get help?
Yeah, and I think that with some of those issues, like we're going back to what you were saying, is the government really, we can't rely on them, because when we look at things from a big scope at the whole process of what we're kind of talking about right now, there's no money being made in natural preventative healthcare or healthy living as far as like a natural approach. There's no money in that. So I think
you're saying as a personal trainer, you're not a multimillionaire?
Yeah, right? No, such a crazy thought.
No.
I think that's the biggest challenge and roadblock that we have, though, is if we're really looking at how do we turn this around, we have to really look at it with some good lens, because there is no money to be made in more of a natural, like the government's not going to make money. The big food industry, FDA, CDC, NIH, all these different agencies that are governing agencies, there's no money in a healthy person. That is not putting any profit back into the pockets at all for those large industries. So that's the challenge we run into. I even saw something on one of the mainstream media networks yesterday, and they were interviewing the CEO of YouTube, and they were saying that they're going to start taking down anything that promotes vitamin C or turmeric or any natural product that could, quote, help someone with their immune system. They're saying that no, people are posting this information saying it's going to cure, so that goes against our community standards, so we're going to delete it. And what they were talking about later, someone that was trying to break that video down, they were saying, no, it's not an issue of people saying it's supposed to cure. It's people saying, let's look at vitamin C. Let's look at different macronutrients, micronutrients, vitamins, to see if it can actually help boost the immune system.
Right.
So we're seeing a lot of censorship on simply trying to live a healthy lifestyle without anything else to intervene. So that's number one, the big challenge I think that we're going to run into. So we have to think outside the box. How do we get around that? And I think community, I think it's reaching out to people and really doing programs, doing community events. It's kind of like that philosophy when you are invited to something, let's say on a weekend, and you have too many options. For me personally, I'll just end up saying, forget it. I don't know. I'm just going to say, there's too many options. I don't know if you do that, but I actually will do that. And I think that I've compared that a lot to people I work with. You throw too much stuff at them, they're just going to say, that is too overwhelming. I don't know. I'm not going to even start.
Yeah.
So it's usually, let's start with one thing. After that one thing, and you feel confident and you've conquered it and you feel educated, because that's the point. You don't want to just give people information and just say, okay, I hope you learned it, go on. But you want to know, no, you've absorbed that and you're starting to live that lifestyle out of that education that you have absorbed. And then you move on to point two. I think for me, that's kind of my philosophy with people that I work with is I want to ensure that they feel equipped, they feel educated, they feel knowledgeable to where actually they're living that lifestyle. Then you move on. So we can't overwhelm. So we've got to find a way. How do we get through to people where they want to make that change? And it's because it's going to be out of confidence, knowing that they've conquered that first point, and then they can go on to number two.
Yeah. No, it's so good. I mean, I don't know how many times I've walked into the vitamin store, and there's thousands of options. And I do believe people get overwhelmed and they just say, everything's poison these days, so let's just eat and be merry and trust God and whatever, And so, but what you'll find is, I believe that what you said is true. There needs to be some kind of gradual education, and this could even be emphasized more in school systems, I believe, in how we educate them from the beginning. But doing it in a gradual way so it's digestible, and emphasizing small habits, small changes. These are all things that I believe in, that I've coached people on for years, and you see real change. I mean, I've seen people get off of a list of heart medications, high blood pressure medications, diabetic medications. I mean, and even avoided surgeries that the doctors told them it was unavoidable. You will have to have surgery. And I would work with them for over a period of 6 months, and all of a sudden they're back. They were going to have back surgery, but now they're able to stand and function, and they're pain-free. I mean, it's a real solution. And then you have big pharma, big industries who are only focused on the money, that just want to dismiss it and make it seem like it's petty, like it's just a pie in the sky idea. And because of that, so much of the population does the same thing. But, I encourage people to just think a little bit about the process. If you are making money by selling people medication for sickness, wouldn't it be in your best interest to help them get sick? It would not be in your best interest to help them get well. And so I believe we see agendas all over the place, and it's deeply ingrained into marketing, into agriculture, and we have to just wake up and see what's going on, what's behind this, driving us to these certain aisles, these certain restaurants. There's an agenda behind it, and the agenda is always money. But I promise you, there's not enough money in the world whenever your life is on the line, whenever your health is on the line. You can't buy your health back sometimes. And so what you said is important, is voting with your dollar. Start reinvesting in good health, in good food, educating yourself, learning about what good food is. Because there's plenty of people like you out there who really are concerned about people and are giving their lives and their time just to educate people. And so I would love to see that more readily available in our schools. It would be awesome if the government got behind it. And I would, as a representative, if I'm elected, I want to push that. And I want to push that. It's a controversial button, but it has to be pushed. And I want to push it. But in the meantime, people can't wait for government to act. They have to start acting.
Well, we do. We need someone like you. We need people to step up to, create those initiatives and push them, because you're right. We don't have that. And I always say, if you are a healthy person, you are a customer lost, whether that's to the big food industry, whether that's the big pharma industry, you're simply a customer lost if you are a healthy person. And the biggest key, I would say, in succeeding, and something that I feel like is like kind of a, light at the end of the tunnel to see with children, because I have two, and as a nutritionist, I also work really hard on teaching people how do they work with their kids to get them to enjoy certain foods at a young age and get their palate ready, because that's the thing. We start with our kids, we start giving them goldfish and Kool-Aid and fruit snacks and things like that, and we don't teach their body and their palate to enjoy what real food is. No wonder they start to crave and start to, develop this pattern, this habit of only wanting the processed foods.
Yeah.
The biggest key thing that I would say is, how do we beat this? How do we win? Something I have seen that's been very successful is taking something out, eliminating it, and replacing it. That is going to win people over in what I have seen, because, for example, you take something like, let's say someone really, really enjoys cookies and they just don't want to give them up. Okay, let's eliminate the cookies that you're eating. If you want to have a cookie, let's decrease that amount of times in the week that you're having that cookie, and let's replace it with a cookie that has amazing ingredients like almond flour, and is sweetened with things like monk fruit or honey, or maple syrup, or things like that are more natural sweeteners. 9 times out of 10, when I've worked with someone, we start to replace that, and they're like, okay, this actually does taste good, and it satisfies. Or someone that says, I hate working out, I do not want to do it, I haven't found anything I have enjoyed. We start to go on the list of like, well, if you like to do walks, then we're going to start walking. If you want to dance, a dance fitness class. Go find something, play basketball that you enjoy, and let's make it a goal. You're going to do it 3 times a week. After a certain amount of time of weeks, they're like, oh, well, it actually just felt like an activity to me that wasn't really working out.
Right.
Things like household products, like laundry detergents, cleaning, and there's so many different chemicals and so many things that can go wrong when we're using these household cleaners day after day, week after week. You start to give them replacements where they feel like, oh, I didn't have to give it up, but you got to have a better replacement for it. That's where I think we can start to win the kids over, is we start to replace some of these snacks, these foods, this way of living, taking out so much of the screen time where they're so focused. They're losing social skills. They're having brain development issues because of the studies coming out with our phones and iPads, with their neurological development. We start to replace certain things. I really do think that we could have a chance of turning our world around.
I believe it. Yeah. And I love the practical tips. People need direction. Like I said, they want to do something, make a change, be healthy, get their kids healthy, but they need some practical steps. And I think you just offered some great practical steps that people can start taking. Replace one thing. Just get 1% better every day. Change those small habits, and they accumulate and they compound. I believe that something, because I'm looking at what the individual can be doing, and I'm also looking at what can the legislatures be doing to be passing bills and laws, providing incentives, tax breaks, these kinds of things to encourage the healthy lifestyle that really, it determines the future of our nation, the future of the next generation. So if I were to be elected to Congress, then
really hope you are.
One thing I would love to do is, in the same way that they're giving tax breaks for electric cars, for automakers to produce electric cars, can we not do the same thing to the food industry? And if they would be producing truly healthy foods, they get a tax break, because you're helping our society become healthy. You're helping deal with the healthcare crisis. And so we are going to help you by giving you incentive and tax breaks. I think that's one way. That's one way that government can step in and help in this whole dilemma. So
That's a great, great way. Well, and what better way, if you really think about it, when you're talking about money, it's a pretty good incentive, instead of just saying, well, let's just make our school systems better. Let's just start, providing more healthier food. I think that's a great incentive. And I think that would be a number one thing that I would definitely vote for.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to do these interviews to inform people and give people some practical tips like you just gave them, and then also let them know where I stand and what I intend to do as a representative of Oklahoma. But I want to hear from Oklahomans who are here working for the same cause, have the same heart, and because I believe we have to do this together. I'm always preaching the unity. I'm preaching link arms. We have to do this together. So all of our voices need to be heard. And I appreciate you coming on, letting your voice be heard. And I believe it's powerful. So I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for running too. I really, really, I don't know. I'm really excited that you're running. I think that that's exactly what we need. And you're right. We have to start using our voices. I think this past year has really given me some more boldness and courage to use my voice and just the field and industry, that word
Right.
industry that we're in, to really speak some truth and start to rise up and create some change. So you're right. We have to link arms, get the word out.
Absolutely. Well, I'm with you. I appreciate you linking arms with me. So
Hey, I'm thankful for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, I'll let you get back to your evening with your family, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Okay. Thank you, Jake.
You bet. We'll see you.
Bye.